You're on. Hey, we're rolling.
I want to thank everybody for showing up today for Axis of Love's patient protest. And we're here today in one of the world's only medical cannabis sanctuary cities. And we're protesting the fact that our local and our state government found a way to get money into wealthy businessmen's pockets before they are finding a simple route to assure compassion programs for low-income hospice people to get their medical cannabis. So we have a crisis in compassion. Earlier this year, we had a report going on from the California Growers Association about the crisis that the growers are having with the fact that we have only the 1% of the 1%. Hey, there's Ross Mirkarimi. Hey. So we have a situation where we only have a select few people of the growers being able to afford the expensive permits, and with that rolls out that a lot of the smaller growers who were giving to compassion programs are no longer surviving. So we have a situation where we have a crisis report coming from the largest growers organization, and now Axis of Love is issuing our crisis report in compassion. We have only 2 dispensaries. I've heard a rumor of one more, so possibly 3 dispensaries out of nearly 40 in the city that have voluntarily kept their compassion programs alive and going. We have people that have been in hospice care at Laguna Honda who have been cut off from their regular weekly compassion. So this is really truly a crisis of life and death. And I really thank the activists that were able to show up today. And I want to tell you, hey Frank, I want to, let people know that each activist that's here is truly representing people that are not well enough to sit in City Hall today and try to address what has occurred. And one of the things that's so sad is that there is in state law a route in the Business and Professional Code which enables City Hall to immediately issue temporary permits for groups that primarily serve low-income patients. So the sad part about this is that there is a solution, there is a clear path, and this compassion should never be an afterthought. We know that our activism, we know that the activism of former Supervisor Ross Mirkarimi, who we've worked with for decades, and it's going on decades now. We're almost at 2 decades, Ross. Here we are trying to assure something so simple, something that compassion patients built, the ability for people in pain who cannot afford their medicine to get a portion of medicine either weekly or monthly, and high-grade medicine so that it is of medicinal quality. So one thing that, Berkeley, boasts of, but actually, it was something that Axis of Love and Supervisor Mirkarimi put in a resolution, was assuring that compassion was defined as quality, high-grade medicine. Because the thing is, the sicker you are, the more medicine you need, the better quality you need. And when we have a case when we only have a few growers in this state having the permits, right? So overall, yes, there's been hundreds of permits issued, but there's thousands upon thousands of growers that used to supply our local merchants. So the quality has also gone down. Not only has the compassion gone down, and then the flip of it is that the price has gone up. So you have the quality and variety going down, and you have the price going up, and the compassion programs closing. So we're gathering today, and we're going to sit up there, and we're going to walk around and talk to the supervisors about how we never had to have a crisis in compassion. how had we put that on the table immediately as we opened up the San Francisco, Department of Cannabis, that should have been the first thing that we made sure of, not an afterthought. We need to make sure that we can get medicine to sick patients before we make sure that we can get money into the wealthy businessmen's pockets. It's pretty simple. So when we go up there today, we're going to let them know that we're brokenhearted, that we've worked for years to get compassion, in view of City Hall and get it legislated. And we worked with Supervisor Sheehy to get 2 last-minute amends last time. And what he did was he basically said it was okay for the retail dispensaries in San Francisco to continue their compassion programs, but it was voluntary. Yeah, so while the effort was sweet, while Supervisor Sheehy is definitely one of us in the sense that he's a medical cannabis patient and he has HIV, so he's familiar with pain and neuropathy and etc., but perhaps a little bit naive to think that, we allowed the stores to continue their programs, they will. Well, they don't want to pay the minimal taxes on the compassion, so we only have 2 dispensaries that I know of, one being Bassa, one being Purple Heart, that are continuing their compassion programs. We have, our friend Leonard Watkins, who's been doing a hospice care program, and I talked to him just the other night, and I said, how are your donations for your hospice care program? And he said, what donations? He said, what donations? I'm struggling to get anything to the people that I've cared for at Laguna Honda for years. So when we go up there, we need to speak from our hearts. We need to make sure that, and it could be a long day. I'm not going to, pull people on, it might be 3, 4, 5 o'clock before Madam President Bree calls public comment. We're going to make our first stop. We're going to head up to her office and see if she'll give us some inner skinny of when she might call public comment. And I do have some talking points for folks. And I want to see if Ross would like to share any thoughts with us.
And those 235 plant collectors.
I think that's a really good point, Denise.
Yeah, whatever happened.
Nice to see you.
It's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see everybody.
Me and Ross are going gray and white. We've been at this so long.
It's like
it's beautiful.
taking on the Santa thing. So those decades are reflected in the hair color. I just want to come in solidarity because we worked together from the get-go many years ago, even before when I was supervisor, that sponsored the legislation that created the regulatory framework in San Francisco for medical cannabis dispensaries and for compassionate use. And I haven't wavered, neither have you, from this position that it is the city's moral obligation to create a mandate that prescribes the execution of what cannabis use is. And I have been dismayed that that has not happened yet. I think what is being discussed in the Board of Supervisors is really lightweight, and frankly, I'm more than just underwhelmed. I think that the Board of Supervisors is tremendously failing, I think, in their roles and responsibilities of keeping something that once San Francisco was a national leader on, and we are no longer that leader. Trust me, because I'm working somewhat in the industry and hearing from other municipalities and jurisdictions from around California and outside about what their plans are for maintaining the purpose of compassionate use. Now, I'll tell you something. In 2008, I legislated. There's an 88-page law that was never introduced, and it was required to be returned back, that anticipated one day, if compassionate use was ever made to suffer in San Francisco, then through that legislation that the city attorney said that we cannot go forward because of federal prohibition, is that then I required San Francisco General Hospital through their formulary to be delivering medical cannabis. Now, since the city has gotten brave about taking on the federal government, I think that if you were looking for a strategy that you want to insist on the Board of Supervisors returning to, you tell them to dust off that old piece of legislation that's been there for almost 9-10 years now, and that requires city partnership. But do not accept what I think is the low-hanging fruit for there to be a voluntary retail free market perspective that this is how compassionate use is supposed to be implemented, by letting charitable dispensaries and other businesses who are friends one day and may not be the next because of whatever other capitalist reasons, that the city step up and do the right thing.
Exactly.
So I wanted to give you guys that moral support because those are my beliefs too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's no longer like this, put it that way.
So, Ross, we love you, Ross. Ross is boss. One of the best legislators I've ever worked with. My political mentor, the person that took us under the wing. And
it was good to see him again.
And it's crazy because both me and Ross and other people, we've gone, white and gray, and we're working on our second decade of trying to push forward compassionate care. And that is just crazy in a city that is a sanctuary for medical cannabis, to have the businesses have this light obligation to, if they feel like it that day, have a small compassion program. This is crazy. Patient activists worked on this for so long, and so hard. And we're here again together today to make sure that we continue this, because we cannot leave a legacy, because, eventually we're all leaving, in the next 10 to 30 years. We're going to have hopefully we won't have a generation underneath us that needs to continue this battle. Hopefully we'll have finally gotten there and have it set in stone that low-income patients can have affordable to free medicine. It was awesome to have Ross come and join us. If folks don't know, Ross wrote the first cannabis law in permitting process in the nation. Something I want to mention as well is that, cities in Colorado have used their adult use taxes to house, feed, clothe, and shelter their homeless population. They basically solved homelessness in their city. In California, most of the tax revenues go to code enforcement to take out, the 1% competition. So in other words, it's what we call a coercive monopoly, and that's when one business network works with the state or local government to create regulations that either are so expensive or so complicated that nobody else but them has a fair chance on sort of cornering the market. And that's what we have in California. That's where the tax dollars go. They go to code enforcement and law enforcement and do not go into the things that we all expect the tax resources to go into, even things like infrastructure and paving the roads and making sure, that, our schools are top notch. No, our funding in California goes primarily towards law and code enforcement, and it is so sad. And that is one of the reasons why Axis of Love did not support Prop 64. We supported MCLR, which was a fair and just law. We had about 15 activists from across the state and primarily from Axis of Love sign on to the version 3 of that law, And that law had been worked on by thousands of activists online, open source, and we would not be in a crisis for compassion had that law gone through. But here we are, we're reporting on the crisis in compassionate care in the world's second sanctuary city for medical cannabis. Medical cannabis patients cannot and are not able to access local compassion, and it is such a sad report to convey. And I want to thank everybody for being here and standing united and really ready to get up into City Hall and put this on the table, since they aren't putting it on the agenda. Thank you.
Yay.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, yes.
How sweet was it that Ross came and joined us? That was so sweet, you guys.
Yes, it was. I love that.
At 3 o'clock, I have to be home to let